We are here spilling the tea with Dr. P. And you know, I have my tea, y'all. You see my cute little mug that I have going on today in acknowledgement of Founders Day for my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and all the great and wonderful folks that are in the D9. We are here today to talk with Mr. Curtis Young about his experiences in nonprofit, about working with youth, about art and culture and mental health and all things excellent. So super excited to have you here, Curtis. Super excited about the conversation that we're about to have. And it's even more exciting because I've been waiting for this. I mean, I have notes. I've been waiting for this. And so I'm super excited. I even have folks reach out to me like, oh, I know Curtis. I'm gonna listen in. You're the reason they listen in. I am not enough reason for them to listen in. You are the reason that they are listening in. But I appreciate it however we get folks listening. So welcome, Curtis, to Spilling the Tea with Dr. P. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I work at a nonprofit here in New York City called Artistic Noise, where we work with young kids who are involved in the juvenile justice system. I've been doing that for about 4 years, but I have a long history of education, did some work with the State Department under the ACA Bureau, also had a political background. So right now I'm able to merge a lot of that work, formerly working in government and my political background as well as my nonprofit work. But I'm New York based now, and I'm enjoying working with young kids, especially during this very challenging time that we're all going through.
Yeah. I love it. I know you just mentioned artistic noise, and I see some of the art behind you. It is stunning. It is beautiful. I'm jealous. Yeah, I'm jealous.
I always try to make sure I bring art into my space, especially now. It's really important to support Black artists. These are actually not artistic noise students, but they are other artists of color. And that one over there is a piece that I created myself. So I want to
Oh, nice.
I find art to be therapeutic for myself as well. And it's one of the things that I've learned by working with the population that we serve, that it is a way for us to all debrief and connect with our inner creative. So I have been dabbling in creating art myself, and that is one piece that is mine.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Of course, as a therapist, I 100% agree in terms of art being therapeutic. There's actually a lot of science behind the hand-eye movement and the consistency between hand-eye movement and how it releases thoughts. And so when we're working with young children or adolescents and maybe even some adults, it's always great when we have art supplies out, because I find that they are a lot more at ease and relaxed and able to talk about certain things. And it also doesn't necessarily require them to have eye contact. And sometimes when we're talking about some of our most troubling experiences, we don't want to look at people, not because we don't think that we tend to not want to look at people because we don't want to see their reactions, right? We think that they're going to carry the experience with the same emotional weight that we did, and we don't want to cause that trauma for them as we're expressing our own trauma. So yes. I am a firm believer in art and art connections and art therapy, and I'm so glad you're doing that work.
Thank you.
You mentioned your organization, Artistic Noise, and when I was on the website, I noticed that there was a phrase that was used. It said, systems involved youth. Talk to me a little bit about what that means. Like, what is systems involved? Yes. What did that mean for you when you use the word on the website? What does it mean for you now when you're working with the youth? What does it mean for you as a person who's had connections to politics and understanding how certain systems work? What does that mean?
That's actually a very good question. We recently changed that phrasing on our website. Prior to that, we were founded 20 years ago in Boston for young people who were involved in the juvenile justice system.
Okay.
However, as a person of color and navigating, the executive directorship for the past 4 years, especially during COVID, one of the most challenging times being in leadership role at Artistic Noise, I learned that we need to expand that definition, because there are young people, especially now, who are juvenile justice involved. There are systems involving foster care. Yes. There are underfunded education systems. So when I use the word systems, I'm talking about everything that is causing people to not be able to heal or to be successful. A juvenile justice system, foster care system, underfunded education system, poor healthcare systems. Yes. So we say we want to support all all those young people. And that's why we expanded our definition to be systems involved, because it was really
Yeah.
important to let people know that there are many different systems of inequality. And in order
Yes.
to focus on healing, we have to navigate all those different systems. So that's why we changed the definition.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So, in short, it's systems that are preventing people from healing. They're either causing pain or preventing the healing of that pain.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. That's super powerful. How do you all get to talk to the youth about that, about the change in language on the website, about, is something powerful about naming their experience? Is
Yeah.
something powerful in saying, this is what is happening, and this is why, and this is how we define it. And these are the semantics that we use to make it understandable and relatable to others. How often do you guys get to, or what does that conversation look
We
like?
do that at so we do have our therapists on staff, because
Okay.
there's so much trauma that people bring to their experience, to our organization, as well as staff. I've had family members who've been justice involved. So we all have our different forms of trauma that we have to
Yes.
overcome. So it's been really helpful to have a therapist on staff to help us navigate the complexities of that.
Yeah.
So yes, when we do our intake with our young people, we discuss what we are and who we are, and just to make sure they're comfortable with their stories being shared. We never share their story. It's for them to
Right.
share. And they share their stories through art. But initially, we say our organization is composed of young people who are systems involved. We learned a few years ago during our exhibition, we were putting the show together, and we have to have our mission statement on the walls and everything else on the wall. There were a few young people who were like, I don't want people to know that I was justice system involved. So having a broader, because
That's right.
it's a statement that comes along with a young person who made a mistake. Maybe they stole something, maybe they jumped the turnstile at the
Mhm.
subway, but we all make mistakes. So we felt also that by using a more expansive definition, it was not stigmatizing or not making people feel insecure when we talk about
Mhm.
our work. So when you look at our website, we don't take the face. We don't have images of our young people on our Instagram
Mhm.
page, our Facebook page, because once again, there's such a stigma involved with being involved in any system, foster care, education, whatever. So
Right.
we try to really, follow their lead for them to let us know when they're ready for their stories to be told, or if they even want people to know whatever they're involved in system wide.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it so interesting that when we talk about these systems and we say them aloud, they're actually supposed to be positive and helpful systems,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
healthcare is supposed to be something that's positive, not
Mhm.
something that's actually causing a illness or a death, right? The foster care is supposed to be positive in that it's temporary and it's safe and things like that, while a parent is getting themselves the support that they need. It's
Yes,
not designed to be hurtful, but it is. And so
yes,
that's the irony of it all, that these systems are supposed to be positive protective systems, but they're actually systems that are causing pain or
yes.
preventing healing,
Yeah,
right?
they re-traumatize. When you are involved in the foster care system, you're traumatized by that, because you
Yes.
feel like society's going to judge me. They're going to say my mother or father or guardian they were not doing their good job. So now I'm in this situation, and that causes all this internal pain inside and things you have to
Right.
overcome. Although it should not be that way. You should be able to
Right.
look at it like, well, my parent or guardian needed support or needed help. So
Right.
I'm now doing this thing. We're going to counseling or whatever they have to do to heal. And I think
Yeah.
that is the problem when we use these words. So we're very intentional and very careful about trying overly stigmatizing, and using the words in public when the young people may not be comfortable. So we are extremely careful. And once again, we don't show their faces unless they approve. Even videos, like we have a video campaign that we launched last fall, and I'm like, well, we don't show faces. We have some voiceovers, but a lot
Right.
of nonprofits, it can be an abusive
Yeah.
relationship, especially in the nonprofit sector where you're trying to raise money and funders want to hear from the kids who are involved in the program, and we don't do that. We don't
Right.
we don't exploit our kids.
Yeah.
We allow them to be able to tell whatever story they want to share. They can share more by sharing that through art
Yeah.
and documenting their experience by writing it down, by photographing, and learning these additional skills that are empowering as well, and not just them being victims of someone who is trying to make themselves feel better by supporting inner city kids.
Oh, listen, we're not even going there. We're not even even going there about, okay, about how people trying to feel better by supporting. Listen,
Yes.
this is not about, okay, Curtis, we're not doing it today. Okay. Okay.
But that exists a lot, and unfortunately, it exists in the nonprofit space a lot. We look at the diversity in the nonprofit sector. You know, who's leading the sector, who's
yes,
organizations, and they're expecting. You know, they have this savior complex. We try
yes.
to you know what this is all about.
Yeah. Oh, you know, I know. And while you're there in New York, you know, I'm here in DC and I see it all the time. And it's a group of, you know, this is who our population is, but who it's led by is not people who have that lived experience, right? It ends up being led by business people or people that are heavily invested in politics and things like that. And it's not about what is necessary and important, and sometimes that's where the essence gets lost. And so sometimes people are saying that nonprofits are closing because of bad management or things like that, when it's actually closing because there's a disconnect between leadership and the actual population that's being served. And if somebody's going to close down, and it's going to be the population, because that's, you know, oftentimes that's our default when we feel like we're being exploited.
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit about how you define art. Is art, when in this context with artistic noise, is it defined as visual art? Is it defined in other types of art? And if it is one particular type of art, how did you all select that to be the avenue?
We focus on visual art, but we also incorporate, you know, there's photography under visual art. There's so many different things that would fall under visual arts, but that is our focus. We have worked with videography as well in the past. One reason we selected that, as you mentioned, art in the usage of material is very therapeutic. Sketching, you know, selecting the size of a paintbrush, that's very therapeutic because it shows like some people may not be comfortable with the size of this pen.
Right.
And that can mean a lot. That can mean there are a lot of indicators that come from what they select. There's a lot of indicators that would come from the paint that they were used, the color that they use.
Yes.
You know, maybe someone would navigate towards, you know, more vibrant, aggressive colors versus the more pastels. A lot of our young kids have issues with watercolor because there's less control in that. So there's a lot of healing that goes into art making by the thought process behind the materials that's used. So that's why we focus on visual arts, because we try to get them to feel comfortable with using a variety of material. We actually have, but also it really depends on the teaching artist. We have an art therapist that helps navigate all the material usage and those complex conversations, even sketching while we're talking about these complex issues sometimes during sessions. But you know, our teaching artists really are leading or driving the art creation process. We have a teaching artist, an amazing woman of color who is actually a former battle hip hop rapper.
Okay.
When she applied, I'm like, oh my God, you're amazing. You were a hip hop artist in the 90s, and now you're doing all these really cool video projects. We want to hire you. So we hired her. And she's now, we invested, you know, money into buying cameras. We have all of our young kids, they have cameras. They're learning how to use cameras and create set designs and to photograph each other in different empowering poses. And they're creating, so they're doing that, which is photography, but they're also creating these crowns that they're going to be photographed in. And that's like, they're painting it, they're sculpturing it. So it's a multi-dimensional sort of project, but we try to have a variety of mediums that we explore with them so they can all find their niche, you know?
Yeah, that is beautiful. You know, I'm over here having a moment because in my childhood, this is crazy. I don't mention it always, but I grew up in Southern California in the 80s, and there was this weird award. It's so weird now when you think about it, called Most Likely to Succeed, right? Like, what kind of sadistic award is that, right? And I understand the intentions. It was like, you gonna be the one, right? But what does that communicate to all the other people, right? So I got the award, Most Likely to Succeed. And while it was positive in the moment, what it also reinforced was that there was one way that I was going to be successful, and that was through literature and academic, like traditional academics, right? And getting a degree, getting a diploma, and then a degree, and then another degree. And while it was nice to know that I had that support, it also limited me. I love art, Curtis, and I am so insecure when it comes to my own art. Like you said, sketching, and my heart was like
Yeah,
because my limit is a house. You know,
yeah,
the house with the little chimney on
yeah.
top and the little stick people. But I wish I could create, and maybe one day I will. Maybe that's also the purpose of this conversation, to be inspiring for me and for everybody else that's listening too. Let's talk about that a little bit too, I guess, because our society is largely focused on success being defined by academics, being defined by the term intellectuals and deep thinkers and all of those kind of things, success, climbing this ladder. And creatives have often been put off on the side as if they're not in the circle of success, right? What does that mean for you as you are currently creating, manifesting, reinforcing
Yeah, I think
creatives?
that first, I think we are all creative. I think at the core of humans, we are creative individuals. You look at our civilization, the evolution of our civilization. We were creating cave art, thousands of years ago, and our ancestors were the most creative people to walk this planet ever. So I think
Yes.
that we have to always remember that we are creative beings, and we all have the potential to create art or create some form of art, be it speaking or writing or creating a painting.
Yeah.
A lot of our young kids who are in our program, and I shouldn't say kids, but our youth, they come to us with just a small interest in art. Some of them may be insecure about what they can do, but it's not about them coming and being able to create a magnificent piece of art. It's about the process of creating. And
Yeah.
the healing comes in the process, right?
Yes.
So we look at them, we value all of them. We pay our young kids in our program.
Wow, really?
Yeah, our art and entrepreneurship program, we look at them as artists. You're not just here to heal or to meet with our art therapist. We want to I'll also validate you as a person and validate your experience. And you are a professional youth artist. So
Yes.
we pay them a rate. They come to our sessions and they learn everything that goes into creating a piece of art, but also the skills that they may be lacking. Like, how do you curate a show?
Yeah.
How do you figure out which pieces should be in your exhibition? How do you describe your work? How do you talk about this experience this art you created? How do you put that into 5 sentences so the viewer is coming, they understand who you are and why you created this experience? And that's where the empowerment comes in. We it's not about the art, it's about the process of making the art and how you may decide you don't want anyone to see this art. Art that's created under the confines of our therapists during individual sessions, we don't show that because that's very personal. I mean, they may be talking to her about, family issues, and while they're talking, they're creating art or sketching, and that is, one, very personal. We don't share that. We let them decide what they want to share. But everyone is considered an artist, and we pay them because they have value not only to our organization but to society, because they are helping others to see youth who are involved in the system, or youth who maybe, I don't know, whatever they're going through, as an asset to community. These are people who can be artists, videographers, orators, and they have the potential just as everyone else. So we empower them through that. And I think the big culminating experience for them to see themselves in this light is our end of year exhibition. When they finally have their show together and they're in this gallery space, and folks are walking up to them saying, "This is the most amazing piece of art I've ever seen."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Really? You think so?" It's empowering. So the healing comes in because they are validated through this experience. One, through us viewing them and paying them for their time and what they're creating, and then them setting. Another really important thing is they set the prices for their artwork.
Okay.
So they may
Okay.
create something and thinking about, how do I value what I created? It's helping
Okay.
them to reconsider the value of themselves. Like,
Yes.
I put 8 hours into this painting, or I put 100 hours into this painting. My time is worth
That's
something.
right.
So I'm gonna value this as $1,000.
Yes.
And if they sell their work, all the money goes back to them. We don't
Okay.
take a dime from it. All the money goes back to them. It's a way for us to say, you have value. And if you decide to be an artist, you can make money from this career. This is something you can pursue as a career option.
Yeah, that is amazing. So many good points there. So many good points. One of the things that you mentioned made me think about something we talk about in the mental health industry around competence and confidence. And oftentimes people define their own individual success, not by the money that they make per se, but by how competent they feel and how confident they feel. And if those two are aligned together, then they call themselves successful, right? And I love to think about it that way, especially as you're thinking about your youth, because in those moments where people are validating, it's probably also increasing their own confidence. It's increasing their thoughts around their competencies as an artist as well. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about a little bit about the fact that when in our society, how do I say this now? So I grew up again in a tough neighborhood. And what was in my neighborhood for resources and outlets were basketball courts and football courts, and those things were great. And we had to take a bus to get to the library, and those things were great. I don't think I went to an art museum until I was probably well into adolescence, or maybe even a young woman. And when I got older and I started thinking about that and making some of the connections to the language that I was hearing, it was that art was a cultural experience. Art was not for me, for people who looked like me, right? Except African art. Curtis, African art was for me, right? Like the sculptures, but everything else, that was not for me. And it was demonstrated by where the museums were, where the galleries were, where the art was being placed. As I continue to get older and think about it, I saw art, street art, right? I saw people painting and they have it up having it in their house. I saw all sorts of things, but it wasn't supported in some of the more traditional ways. Talk to me a little bit about what this term cultured means when we're talking about art, and how you find ways to continuously make that accessible to people who keep getting pushed out and are marginalized from the traditional art world. You're in New York and you have all the galleries and all the museums and everything, but I wonder if without you, if your youth would be going to those places, right? Like, talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's so that's part of what we try to empower them, build up the confidence, as you mentioned earlier, the confidence to walk into those places, to know that as a student in New York City, you can go to any museum free of charge with your student ID.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And so we take excursions each month to the museums like the Met, and we've partnered with the MoMA, we've partnered with the Whitney, because part of my goal is to help them to feel like they own those spaces. They can walk into any of those exhibition spaces, just like someone who lives on Park Avenue, who may be buying, $1 million pieces of art, but they own that space as well. So we do take excursions to those spaces, as well as galleries, visits as well, to help them build their confidence, to help them feel like they are a part of the New York City art scene. Culture has not been, thankfully we live in New York City, where they can walk around the corner and see some art on the street.
Right.
I love, one of my favorite things to see is like graffiti. Like I always point out graffiti because I'm like, this is art, so help them to understand, like, you can't look down on someone who has who's tagged a building, because that is actually an artist. That is someone who's trying to express themselves. So I help them to see, I encourage them to see all those things as art, especially those that are, art that is trying to, how do I describe it? They're trying to, it's not revolt against systems, but kind of express themselves in a way that is not traditionally allowed for them to express. Graffiti artists are just as important as a Picasso, and I think that is how we help youth to redefine their experience with art, or their relationship with art.
Yeah. How do those conversations happen when you're about to take a group of youth who have, for whatever reasons, been systems involved? And more than likely, based off of all the systems that we talked about a few minutes ago, they didn't have a choice, right? Like, this was placed upon them. And subsequently, there are these perceptions that people have, and maybe even perceptions they have of themselves. And you're about to take them to the Met.
Yeah.
What does that conversation look like? What does it sound like? And how do you all navigate all the thoughts and feelings that they may have around that?
Well, the Met is a very overwhelming building. It's large.
Yeah.
Uh, there's African art, there's Greek art, there's a small contemporary section, so an Egyptian section. So we try to pick a place, a particular exhibition, any excursion is always surrounding an exhibition, something we want them to focus on or see
Okay.
that connects to something that they may be doing. If they are, for example, photography. We took them to a Gordon Parks exhibition. Gordon Parks was one of the most obviously famous African-American photographers documenting the experiences of African Americans in the world during this time period. So we bought cameras for them, and they're doing this video project, this photography project. So we're connecting the dots. We want them to see what they're able to do. That Gordon Parks was taking photos of daily lives,
Yeah.
and that we have bought you all cameras. We want you to explore the camera, use it to tell a story, just like Gordon Parks. So part of it is building a curriculum around something we want them to see, to help them feel the connection, right? You can't just say, we're going to go to the Met and just walk in, like just roam around. Sometimes that's good, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes you need a little more thought behind or intention behind what you want them to take away. So we always start off with giving them information packets, like a one pager about what they're going to see. We give them guiding questions. So they have to answer a question, or they may have to take a photograph of one image that stood out to them and describe why and what they felt when they saw the image, or how they connected to what they're working on. So we don't just go to the museums. I think it's really important for us to build their confidence up and to help them understand and see art differently, is to make associations by guiding them and creating a curriculum around the experience. There's been times where we're like, oh, it's a hot summer day, let's just go to the museum, and we've done that. That's fun as well. We'll get ice cream, get pizza afterwards, but really thinking intentionally about and the Gordon Parks exhibition was the perfect example, because they're doing photography and videography, and they have this equipment. We bought these cameras, and they were to go to see a Black photographer, see his work, and make the connection that way.
Yeah. So for a large part is structured. And so that's how you are engaging them. And is there a hope that at some point, once they graduate from your program or they are full into their adulthood, that they would still explore these places unstructured?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is one of our measurements of success. We have a end of year survey. Which is the worst part about nonprofit work. You have to get the surveys, you got to do all that stuff and get the data, which I don't like doing any of that, because but you have to do it. You want to be able to see if someone's growing over time, right? So one of the questions that we have in our survey is, how many times have you visited a museum or gallery outside the confines of our work, unchaperoned, just gone by yourself?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised. And we pose the same question when they enter our program and at the end of the year. And you'd be surprised at how many of them have said, I've gone there on a date, or I met someone, and one person in our program took someone on a date.
Okay.
Because he said, well, I learned about this thing, and now I can go on a date and take my, the person I was dating on this excursion, and to share and to show knowledge of something. And it makes me feel empowered, makes me feel, I guess, I don't know, cultured, you want to say, but it was something that I thought was a nice add-on, that they looked at art as something I want to share. Maybe the date thing is just a byproduct, but the moral is that he wanted to share what he learned with someone else, which is an indicator of growth. It's an indicator that you're not afraid of this white box art institution. You feel confident enough now to invite someone else, that you've been seeing or whatever on this experience, to share that, right? And that's like the goal.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let me tell you something, Curtis. If I was a young person and somebody said, let's go out on a date to this museum, I would be like, okay, you good. Okay, you thinking outside the box. I'm here for it. I love the way that that person demonstrated their knowledge and their comfort in that space and wanting to share it with other people. I love reading. I am an absolute nerd, right? Like I in the last 3 weeks, I've just finished 3 books. I get all into it. And in one of the books that I'm reading, it talks about how creatives tend to be more successful at business than intellectuals, right? And there was all these reasons why. But it's interesting because oftentimes when people think about business owners, or entrepreneurs, they think about straight-laced people who are like rigid and very disciplined in certain things and maybe not in others. So there's this perception that business leaders are intellectuals, for lack of better term. But what the book was saying, and had tons of research and studies and made reference to them, was that creatives are actually the ones that are more successful at business. Talk to me about what that means for you, again, as you are manifesting and creating creatives who, because they were systems involved, have also been told what they cannot do, and how business becomes an outlet of what they can do, and how their success may be connected to the creativeness that is within them.
Right. I think that's a very good question. I totally agree that creatives are could be exceptional at business once they learn to channel that creativity. Some of the things I do in my personal life is when I'm writing my to-do list, I'm mind mapping.
Yeah.
I have circles, I have words, I circle connecting. I have just a whole different way of doing my to-do list now, and it's largely based on how my brain is just dumping and trying to understand what I'm trying to get out. So I myself, I do these exercises when I'm trying to make sure I'm being creative when I'm doing something as simple as a list, right? Anyway, so back to our young people though, I think one of the things that I started 2 years ago was I wanted to inspire them to think about the business aspect of art, and to know that they can do the things that people tell them they can't do. So I created this micro grant it was a pilot program. I said, we're going to give you $100 to do whatever you want to do with it.
Okay.
Only thing I want to know is what you're going to do and what you're going to use the money for. And one kid created a book pack line.
Wow.
He used the money, bought like 10 book bags, like cheap book bags on like Amazon. He brought these little patches, art pack roses, and he sewed them on, and he sold it for $40 each.
Wow.
So he flipped that $100. Another person did t-shirts. We have one young lady who did t-shirts based on her artwork. And this year I decided to do the same thing, but I upped the price to $250. Okay. And I said, we're gonna go a little bit further. I want a full proposal. I gave them a template. I want your description. I want a budget, and I want you to pitch it to me. Because we're trying to get them to see that there is a business aspect of it. But you'll be surprised that I think you're right. You're onto something, that creatives, they may not be the best with like itemizing a budget or figuring that out, but the idea of coming up with having an idea or creating an idea or a vision, like it is not something that everyone could do, right. Like being able to think of, well, I love creating art. Maybe I can put this on a t-shirt. Maybe it can be a hat. Maybe, maybe I can make, millions of dollars off of it. I think that is where the creativity lies. And, I think that that's something that I really try to, instill in our young folks, that they can use their creativity, and the business aspect is something they're going to be naturally good at if they are able to channel their creativity first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the book was talking about it in terms of, and I'll make my own connections, but the book was talking about it in terms of you need a good visionary as a business leader. Yes. And then what I've learned as an entrepreneur myself is that as the business leader, you have one role. This is your role, right? Like you cannot be over here trying to do all of these other things. You may not be good at itemizing a budget. That's okay. You can find somebody that'll help you. Exactly. You may not be good at marketing. It's okay. You'll have somebody over here that can help you. But what you are good at, what your lane is your lane. And if you stay in that lane and you use discernment to find the people that can help you, then you could stay focused on the innovation that comes with your own business.
Exactly. No, I totally agree. I think I look at it as a conductor analogy, right? You're conducting, you're bringing everything together, all the pieces together. Like I have some of the most crazy visions. I just had a call with my staff a few days ago, and I'm like, I have this idea, let's do this, let's do that. And, I can't bring it all to reality. I need partners to help me bring this vision. But I do feel having a strong board, having the right staff, when you have the vision, you were able to work with others to bring it to reality. That's right. It is easier having the vision. You can't be a leader without a vision. I think you have to be a visionary and have ideas that you can implement.
And everybody can't and shouldn't have the vision, right? Your accountant shouldn't be creating the vision. That's your job. And so it's super powerful to when reinforcing art to youth, in that you can take this and it is expanding your mind in so many different ways. First, expanding your brain, because your brain and your mind, two different things, right? But expanding your brain and then expanding your mind, and it can manifest in whatever ways you want. You want to be a business leader? Stay creative and watch this happen. You want to do this? Stay creative and watch that happen. And it becomes this internal drive that creates success in ways that our society does not or has not consistently given credit to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, yeah. When they create their projects, it blows my mind, things that they think of. Like they're trying to implement, social media strategy, marketing, things that I would never have even thought of. I'm reading through their proposals now. We're trying to get them all set for this spring cohort, and they have amazing ideas. And they're thinking about their artwork and how that connects to their social media platforms now. And one has a YouTube page, things that I'm not good at YouTube, but they're like, well, I can promote on YouTube. I can do this, I can do that. And it's empowering to see these aha moments that when it clicks in their mind, like I can do this and I can make money. I can create a line of clothing or book bags or whatever. And it's really empowering to see this growth. And them not even looking at them not realizing that this is also part of the healing process. Like I said before, this is part of the journey of growing and healing and looking at yourself and being confident and knowing that you can do anything. So going through these sort of exercises, the micro grant is an exercise in building confidence in them. Regardless of what they create, they're building something, they're creating something, and they're going to walk away feeling more empowered.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I in November, so 2021 was a extremely tough year for me. Many people who know me, and I tell them that, they say, hey, I wouldn't have assumed that it was a tough year because you just kind of carried on. I never know, Curtis, if that's a compliment or an insult, right? Like, I'm like, is that good or bad? Who knows? Who knows? But towards the end of the year, I decided to take a personal retreat. And I went down to Richmond and had an amazing time. And it was just me. And that was powerful in itself because, I have my wife and I have my teenagers, and I'm always responsible for someone or something. And so I don't have years of experience of just being responsible for myself. So this retreat was healing and powerful in the realization. And one night I was like, oh, I want to do something real fun. And I decided that I was going to do a mural walk the next day. I was like, I'm going to do a mural walk because when I've traveled with my wife, we've done different mural walks around different cities. So I was like, I want to do that by myself. Curtis, it ended up just being me and this one older white man who was the guide. I was the only participant on the walk.
They have great murals in Richmond.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, the tour was much longer than it was supposed to be because we were sitting there and there were moments of silence where we're just looking at the art. And he sees this art all the time because it's part of his work. And I am just sitting in awe. Like, look at the color choice, look at the design, look at the lines. I wonder if this part was intentional or if they just went with the flow and all of this stuff. Mm-hmm. There was this one piece of art with this woman, a Black woman, and it was powerful because she had on, I can't think of the artist's name right now, but she had on armor, right? She was a Black woman with locks and she had on armor. And in her hand, she was holding a tree that still had its roots to it. So the tree, along with the roots, were uprooted and were about to be placed somewhere else. And immediately I thought about our connections to the continent of Africa, where the tree is being moved, the tree of life is being moved, but the roots are still there, where no matter what the outside looks like, the connection is still there. And most people are going to look at the leaves and they're going to look at the branches and they're going to look at the trunk and they're not going to necessarily look at the root, but how powerful that was. And oftentimes since then, I've looked back at that picture when I needed some sort of reminders of who I was and some connections of who I am. Mm-hmm. Are there places or pieces of art that ground you, that remind you of the essence of who you are, that refocus you in this work. Because at some point, art just can become just work, right? That's how you live. That's what you do for the other folks that are surrounded by you, your staff, your board, your students. But where do you get your own grounding
Yeah.
in this work? And is it through art?
It is. It's actually through the stories and the perspectives of our youth that we serve. It really is. I mean, some of my darkest days, during this very challenging past few years, has been being finding my empowerment through seeing what they're creating and being inspired and knowing that I have a raison d'etre, I have a mission, I have something I'm working on, and it is improving the lives of the community in which we serve. But there's one particular piece that, in addition to having I have some other artistic art on this side of the wall you can't see, but I have this piece right here. You really can't see it.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Unfinished.
It's called Unfinished. I'll send you an actual image of it afterwards. But I love this piece. It was our signature piece for our end-of-year exhibition. It's one of our catalogs that's created by all their art. But this piece right here in particular reminds me, and I have this hanging on my wall. It reminds me of that. It's called Unfinished because the young woman who did it was she's now an alum. She has a child and doing well in life. She created this piece. She was going through some things in life and she didn't get a chance to finish this piece of art. But I looked at it and I said, this is actually finished. I look at it as a magnificent piece of art. And she said, it's not finished. And if you look closely, there are some lines that there are some things that she did not finish. But it reminds me so much that we can be a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. So I saw that somewhere on Instagram and I was like, this is actually what this painting means to me. And getting her to see that it actually is perfect. And I think she ended up selling the original piece. And now we made prints of I have a print version of it. And we put it on our catalog because it meant so much to us to be able to share this work. And she called it Unfinished. So the show title of the exhibition that year was called Unfinished.
Wow.
And all the young people in the program agreed that this piece should be on the catalog, and we agreed that the title should be Unfinished because they were supporting her in what she was going through in life, and they wanted to uplift her. So it's stories like that that reminds me of what the importance of our work and the importance of not trying to be perfect. If our young people can be this vulnerable, if they can be this vulnerable, if they can open up and share their experiences and their challenges in the world and the healing that needs to happen, then I can do the same thing. And I'm empowered by seeing them do it. So I have to do the same things. I talk to them, I say, listen, I'm not, today is not the best day. I'm going through this, I'm going through that. And they're like, why, mister? I'm like, oh, let's not go into a therapy session. But just know, we do this check-in each day when we have our session. We say, how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? And sometimes we'll flip it and say, how do you feel? If there was one color that can describe your emotion right now, what is that color? So these are ways to get a better connection to how they're feeling. But that itself is just really empowering. It's empowering for them to see them open up and for them to share these very intimate moments of creativity so publicly and them being vulnerable. So that is how I would answer that question.
Wow. That is beautiful. In the work that I do, there's moments where I say something and it causes people to have an emotional reaction, right? And I just experienced that with you when you said you can be a work in progress and still be a masterpiece. How empowering is that, right? How beautiful is that to acknowledge that you are already amazing.
Yes.
You are already what you want to be. And maybe there's a little bit of refinement here and there, maybe dust, taking off some of that dust from the diamond or shining it up a little bit, but it is still a diamond. It has always been a diamond, right? You have always been a masterpiece. You will continue to be a masterpiece. And there's a line maybe that you can draw here, maybe. There's a color you can add here, maybe, but you are already a masterpiece. And how powerful if our people, especially Black people, have that as their daily mantra, right? Instead of the messages that tell them otherwise.
And it's difficult for people I was also voted most likely to succeed in college.
Oh, Curtis.
When you mentioned that, I was like, oh my God, I know that feeling because people when you get that like ridiculous label and people think that, oh, this person is a masterpiece, they're perfect from an
Right.
outsider perspective, that we are also, we have a hard time living up to that and always
Yes.
striving for perfection or wanting to be overachievers. And I think that it's really important to be grounded. I'm grounded
Yeah.
each day. I come in contact with our young folks to say that, listen, I don't have to be a perfect. I don't. We all work in progress, and you
Right.
can't do the work for someone else without doing the work for yourself. Because
Yeah.
we have to all be doing the work together and moving and making progress, and also realizing our own beauty and our own masterpiece that we already are.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to I don't want to give away the secrets of how artistic noise works, right? I'm not here for that.
Okay.
I do recognize, like you mentioned, that you all are in New York, and of many of our US based cities, New York is one of the ones that is known to be creative and known to be open to different forms of creativity, whether it's in fashion or visual art, or language art, or whatever the case may be. For a person that may be listening and they're in a smaller town and they want to do something similar, what are maybe some basics that they can do? They want to help, they want to heal, they want to acknowledge mental health. They have youth who have been in complicated situations, but the city itself, or the area itself, or the neighborhood itself may not always be welcoming to different forms of creativity. What's a couple things that you would say to that person?
I would say buy a sketchbook, buy some pencils, and sit in silence with yourself.
Okay.
I think that is one thing that is really important, to be able to just dabble and create. Writing is also very therapeutic. I think this is just
Yeah.
a time that we all have to find ways to express ourselves, where
Yeah.
we've gone through so much emotional collective trauma. And it's important to find some way to express yourself individually and to decompress.
Yeah.
I grew up playing music, and I bought a saxophone in September. and I've been
Wow.
playing and I've been playing music. It's been so therapeutic. My neighbors may not like it so much, but it's been my way of being creative. But others may want to take a pen to paper, start writing poetry. Or it's just important for everyone to find a way to, one, first express themselves creatively, and then
Yeah.
two, go out into the world. There's
Yeah.
nothing better to find inspiration on creativity than to take a walk in the park,
Yeah.
go to a museum. Over the break, over the December holiday, I also went to the Met and I took a sketchbook and I sat in front of a Greek sculpture and I just started sketching.
Yeah.
Sketch artist at all, but I was like, I'm gonna just figure this out. I just started sketching, but it was so therapeutic. It was so
Yeah.
calming. People thought I was crazy just sitting there staring at the statue for like an hour, but it came out really nice. It wasn't about the product, it was about the process and how it made me feel. So I would encourage people to get in tune with themselves by
Yeah.
trying to find what sort of outlet they need to get out to the world, to the universe, and then to go to a museum, go on a walk in the park, and then if you find in spaces that you want to volunteer at, go there. It's not
Yeah.
always about you creating a nonprofit. There are tons of nonprofits that are just doing great work already. But if you want to help and get involved with others who are making a difference in local communities, particularly communities who are experiencing collective traumas for a variety of reasons, go there and find nonprofits and ask to serve as a volunteer. We're always in need of volunteers at our
Yeah.
nonprofit. Either you're helping with grant writing, maybe that's your gift, maybe that's your creative outlet. Maybe you're
Yeah.
helping with finance or fundraising, or maybe
Yeah.
you're an artist yourself and you want to find a way to make your practice more intentional. I think
Yeah.
that's what I would recommend to people.
Absolutely. 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 That's beautiful. It's interesting that you mentioned going out and being in nature. A lot of my work is in front of a computer or in front of clients, right? And so I really value my morning walks with my puppy. He's not a puppy. You know what,
Yeah.
Curtis, we don't even have to talk about him because he a little different.
Okay.
But I value that time because it allows me to be in nature for no less than 30 minutes. And today I was walking him, something now that I know, the universe, God, had me take a different path than normal. And when I was out there with him, I happened to look up at a tree, at a set of trees, and I noticed that all the trees had trunks that were upright, traditional trees that were upright. And here was this tree that was upright and then had a natural curve to it. And then
Mm.
it went back upright. Curtis, I thought my eyes were deceiving me. I had to go up to the tree. I was like, This not how this is supposed to look, right? And then I took care of my dog for a few moments, and then I walked back to that tree again, and I felt so inspired. I felt like that was healing in itself. It went against what we thought it was supposed to do, and it was beautiful.
Yep, exactly.
And maybe it corrected itself by going back upright, but what was at eye level and what was most extraordinary about it was this curve that was quite natural. It was a natural curve. It was not like hit. I know you're probably like, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
But it was so beautiful because it inspired me in different type of ways. So when I did my therapy this morning, I used it as an analogy too around people's own processes and their own healing and their own understandings of themselves, that some things that look like it's not supposed to be there is natural, and that's what it is, and that's who we are supposed to be, right? And it doesn't need to be corrected. That is who we are.
Yeah.
Tell the folks out in the internet and on the podcast listening and on YouTube and wherever this ends up in our world, how to get in touch with you, how to support your program, how to support youth that are near them that may not have access to artistic noise, but are ready to heal in very beautiful and creative ways.
Yes, well, I would say you can follow us on social media. We post all of the amazing artwork that we create and also updates on future events and programming we have publicly available at our IG page at artistic_noise. Our website is artisticnoise.org. My personal IG is Curtis D. Young. You can always follow me as well. And find a way to serve. I think we are, as Dr. King said, not everyone can be famous, but everyone can be of service. Everyone can be great because greatness is determined by service. So find a way to serve by volunteering at a nonprofit, using your talents and making the world better.
Yes, 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 absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate you so much, so much for spending this time with me here today. And I was inspired myself, right? And I might be the one that goes and gets a sketchbook. I don't know what's gonna be in there yet, Curtis, but something's gonna be in there because
I would love to see what you create.
Oh, wait, hold on. You asking for too much now. Let me at least buy it first. Let me see if I could get it going.
I know you're a therapist, but we have an amazing art therapist. So if you ever want to talk to our art therapist, we can make that work as well.
I might need it, Curtis. I might need some help and encouragement around my confidence and competence when I pull out this sketchbook. Yes, indeed. But I feel so great to be here with you. I'm not sure if my team has told you or told everyone, but I have made a decision to take a little bit of a break from Spillin the Tea. And it was super important for me to have this conversation with you and for this to be the last one that we have for that Spillin the Tea and Onyx has for a while, because I wanted this to be the lasting note, right? I wanted people to walk away and think about all the beautiful ways that mental health can be addressed and can be healed for various populations, including some of the populations that are the most vulnerable, which happen to also be the ones that are usually the most marginalized, and the work that you're doing to help heal and how it could be replicated in small communities and in small neighborhoods, and maybe not to the same degree that you're doing it, but it can absolutely be part of that healing process for whomever needs it. So thank you again for coming and being with me. For our audience, you know how to get in contact with me. I am Dr. Plummer of Onyx Therapy Group. So definitely follow us on socials, Onyx Therapy Group. And my own personal social on IG is Mahogany Sunshine. I've taken a break for several months, but guess what? Your girl is coming back. So watch what I have to say and do in the upcoming months on my own personal IG page as well, Mahogany Sunshine. Thank you for all of the audience who has been listening with us over the last 12 months as we've explored mental health in various beautiful ways. And I hope that you continue to engage with Onyx Therapy Group in the future, or find other mental health companies that give you what you need, the tips, the interventions, the feelings of confidence that make you feel connected and give you the space to process your own mental health needs along the way. So thank you, Curtis. I appreciate you so much. And to our audience, thank you so much as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.